All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Building Maintenance Basics. I am Jeff Curwick. I am currently the maintenance manager at the Waunakee Public Library in southern Wisconsin. So our building here is 4 years old. We opened in 2019. It's 40,000 square feet. I have been part of two building openings so far, one being a school building and one being this building. I have worked in public schools for 7 years before coming here. I did get my building operations certification through Focus on Energy, and I have my business school officials core facility management certification. And that one is through the school business officials. So we'll get started with some safety before we get moving on to our next part. So I want to make sure we have some ladder safety. We always want to make sure the ladder's fully folded out. If you look at that top arrow, you'll see the legs of the ladder. We do not want those bent in any way that could lead the ladder to collapse. We want all 4 feet firmly on the floor. We don't want to be tipping over. You got to inspect the ladder to make sure that there's no damage whatsoever. I know some are wood, some are fiberglass. There's a lot of different ways that we have ladders. So make sure that they're not damaged. We don't want to make sure that we get on a ladder that has any damage. 3 points of contact, that's a hand and 2 feet. That is we want to just make sure that we're on that ladder. So mostly we want a hand and 2 feet on there at all times when we're working. Biggest thing that we have and that I see between schools and libraries and everywhere else is people using a chair. Chairs are not ladders. Chairs tip over. A lot of people get hurt using a chair as a ladder. Some people, there's chairs with wheels. I've seen it all. So we don't want to get on tables. They're obviously a little bit safer than chairs, but we just want to always use a ladder or a step ladder. If you don't have one, we need to get one. That is the best safety that we can have. Electrical safety, the biggest thing is extension cords are not permanent solutions for not having an outlet. Extension cords wear out. They're just not good. I've seen them in classrooms running through the ceilings and coming out of the ceilings from teachers. And that's what they had to try to put their projectors up on the wall. That school has been tore down and replaced, and it was one that I opened, but we do not want to do that. I want to make sure that you look at your plug. Your plugs will still work without a ground on them. That's the bottom pin of a 3-pronged outlet. The ground is very important. If not, later in the slideshow, I have how to replace an electrical plug. You want to make sure you have that plug grounded. Oh, I'm losing my connection, it says, but that's all right. We'll keep going. If you're going to do anything with the wires in the wall, please make sure you turn the breakers off. That's pretty self-explanatory. We don't want to be dealing with live wires. Later in the slides, I'll have how to turn on and off breakers. When pulling anything out of an outlet, make sure that the breaker's off. I have a good story for this one. I went into one of my schools and I opened up the breaker panel and the breaker kept popping. So I went back to the room to see what was going on, and here a student had stuck in a staple in the wall, which then connected the wall through metal to the wall, which was grounding it out, which kept popping the breaker. Obviously, I didn't want to grab that wire. I don't know how that student didn't get shocked or something didn't happen to them. Burns, that could have started a fire. I had never seen it before, but there was a staple hanging out of the outlet, which then was touching metal in the wall and popping the breaker. If it does go off, and that's why we want to check the space before going back and turning any breakers on. You could have turned that on, charged that wall. Luckily, it was summertime when I did that, so there was no students in the building, but that was a pretty dangerous situation. We're going to get into HVAC, your heating and cooling systems. You probably see on the left side of your screen, the two air conditioning units. Most of our library buildings will have that. Some will have some chillers, which we'll get into, and then your furnaces. So in the front there, the white, that is on the right side, the front white is a water heater. And right behind that with the white box on it, that is a furnace. So you probably have a room that has probably 2 to 3 furnaces in it. You probably have another space that either has a gas or an electric hot water heater. We're going to get into more of that here in some future slides. So filter changes. Filter changes are one of the biggest things you can do for indoor air quality of your building. It's fairly simple to do. We, during COVID, moved our filter changes in my building up to every 3 months. It's fairly cheap. It's very good. There's a whole bunch of different ratings on filters. We'll get into that. And your filters are on the return side of your system. So some people may have them in the vents in the ceiling. There might be vents in the wall that have filters on them. There may be a filter on the return side. They can be anywhere from 4 inches, 1 inch on your smaller systems, or in my system in this building, we have 2 sets of filters, 1 4-inch and 1 2-inch. Fun fact, MERV 13 filters were actually made out of the same material that N95 masks were made out of during the pandemic, which made them extremely hard to get my hands on them for our filters. But that's just a fun fact. I like to use MERV 11 or higher. Here's the filter scale for MERV, which I think is another good thing to have. We have 6 through 8, which is lets large things through. 8 is for pollen and pet dander to 11, and that's why I suggest 11 or higher, so that you can get the bacteria, that type of thing out of the air in our MERV 11 to 13 filters. They usually cost a couple dollars more a filter. If you're buying them per case, it's really doesn't add up to much, but it's going to take and make your air quality a lot better inside of your buildings. AC units, we want to make sure that we walk around our AC units and take a look and make sure that they're don't have debris on top, which would be your leaves, and I've seen kids throw rocks inside of there if you have them, or bark around the outside of your building. Walk up, take a look. The fans are on top, and you can burn a fan motor out fairly easy if there's something on top of that AC unit. I do have a company that comes out and checks a couple of my other buildings, furnace and AC, once a year. You can do it once or twice a year. It's usually around $100 to $150 per unit to have them come out and service a unit. They check the pressures in the units. They make sure everything's running properly. They'll go in your furnace side, and they usually check those units as well to make sure that the burners are clean, your igniters are clean, which make them start, and those type of things. In the wintertime, we cover our units in Wisconsin. We do have ice and snow that get on top of our AC units, on top of the fans, and get inside of there. So if they are covered, please make sure that you take the cover off. This actually happened at my house. I covered the unit, and my wife turned it on without the unit being uncovered, and it burned up the unit. It was on for a while. The unit gets pretty hot, hence why the fan is on there, which sucks the air through the unit to disperse the heat. We'll get into that more on some chillers, but it's basically a small refrigerator that is being used. So that's why we cover our AC units. Gas shutoffs. I was at a library recently, and the director did not know where the shutoff was. On my photo right there, you can see the arrow. That is a gas shutoff. You will have the gas shutoff on your hot water heaters. You will have them on your furnaces. If you do smell gas, go turn that shut off, sweep your building, and send everybody out. Gas will smell like rotten eggs. You can call your service provider. Down here, I've used MG&E. We had this in a kitchen at the school, one of the schools that I worked at, where we had it smell like gas. So we actually shut everything off. We evacuated the building. The gas company comes out and they have a detector that they use. They call it a sniffer, but it has a long wand on the end, and they can stick that into where you believe the gas is coming out and take a reading, which will let you know if there is a leak or if there is not a leak. We luckily at that school did not have a leak. Sometimes you'll get some leaks from some fittings that just come over time. If you smell that, first thing you can do is check your floor drain, which we'll have later in the slideshow. If it's not coming out of your floor drain, then shut your gas off and evacuate the building and call your gas provider. Boilers. So some systems have boilers. Boilers can be used in my building here. I have a boiler. Boilers are on the hot water side of your system. So if you have heat registers that run on hot water, in-floor heat will actually have boilers. We have in-floor heat in our children's area at the building here. So that uses our boiler. They are basically just a hot water heater on steroids. They're ginormous. They are a closed system. So you don't have to add water or take water out of the boiler system. They actually have antifreeze in the boiler called glycol. So that way, if the water gets below 32 degrees, which it should never get below 32 degrees, it will actually not freeze. I've had the water as low as 20 degrees in one of the schools I was at, and it didn't freeze. That system was a geothermal system without a boiler. So we want to make sure we do that. Most of the time in your buildings, it'll run off gas or natural gas, is how your boiler system will work. They do run off of oil and wood. So if you drive by and you're in rural Wisconsin and you see a wood burner outside, a big shed with smoke coming out of it, that's actually a boiler system. There is the hot water is above it. There is the chamber. Instead of using gas like we use, they actually just use wood heat to heat the water, which then circulates through homes. The water enters the boiler. You can actually see that on the diagram. The water is the blue. It enters the boiler. The furnace turns on, the heat goes through the main tube and through and out the chimney, which warms the water. It circulates through the system and then returns. Most of these returns are on reheats, which are like radiators in your venting systems. So that's what we have here, or in registers that are on the floor. So to get different space temps, so in my building, I have probably 20 to 30 reheats, as we have a pretty big building. That's how I change temperatures in offices. So the water goes through into a register with a modulating valve that then makes the hot water get hotter or cooler. Where if you have a furnace, you can set that to get hotter or cooler, and that's the air, where this air passes through from outside, goes through a register and into the space. I would not suggest you doing boiler maintenance yourself. It is dirty. It is very, very tough. We did do some at the school when I was there, which you pop a couple covers, you clean it all out. Again, this is something probably a professional should do, and you can have them take care of it just like our furnaces and our air conditioner and our chillers, once or twice a year. Here at my building, I get it twice a year. I get once in the spring. They come through, they go through my cool water system, and once in the fall, they come through and they go through my hot water system. So this is our chiller. Our chillers are just like our hot water side, our boiler side, but it is cold water that is used to go through. It is basically a giant refrigerator unit. So what you have in your refrigerator is on the floor or in an air conditioning unit. This is huge. We have a giant one on our roof. They can be wet or they can be dry. Basically, the difference is what cools the refrigerant down. It's either water, but most people will have a dry system, which is air, which is the same thing as our air conditioning units that we had in earlier slides. Basically, what happens, water gets pumped into the evaporator. The evaporator comes in, it takes and uses refrigerant and pressure to squeeze the hot air and the hot out of the water, and it comes back out into a tank, which then is pumped through our systems, and we're using that air to then cool the spaces that we need it to cool. The biggest thing that we need to make sure that we do is that our condenser units, which are outside, which are the big units, that they're free of leaves, and the same things that we checked with for our AC units, we make sure that there's leaves. The biggest thing that I get, and that most places will get with this, will be leaves, those little helicopters that come off of the trees, the seedlings, and then cottonwood. I have along a creek, so I have a ton of cottonwood that gets in here. I have to, in cottonwood season, which was just last week, I have to go up there almost every day and vacuum off my coils that are up on my unit. Now, what you do need to know is in an AC unit and in a chiller unit, the air comes in and is sucked through the unit and out the top. So you would think that in your air conditioning unit, if you walked outside and you put your hand on the top of it while the fan is running, you'll feel the hot air coming out the top, versus what we would normally think, where the air would move through the unit, down through the bottom and out through the sides. It's actually the opposite. It comes through, gets that hot air, and then expels it out the top. So that is our basics on our HVAC systems. Now we're going to get into some plumbing. Now, plumbing looks like this. People look at this and, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with plumbing? There's the sewer side, there's the hot water side, there's the cold water side. It's leaking. I don't know what to do. So one of the big things that we use that most all drains on the sewer side have is called a P-trap. So a P-trap is basically a plumbing trap where the water sits just above the line of where the sewer comes off, goes into the wall. If you look at this lower one, the P-trap is the lower U shape right here, and water will fill up from right there to right there, if you can see my cursor. So what happens is this stops sewer gas from coming into our buildings. So if you drop jewelry down a sink, which you very might as well run into in a library setting, somebody might drop an earring or their ring down the sink and it falls down. It's going to be heavy enough that it should most likely fall into the P-trap. So if it falls into the P-trap, there's a slip joint right here, the top, and the slip joint right at the bottom. Take the bottom rear slip joint and loosen that one all the way off and push that up towards the wall. That will, now remember, there's going to be water in here, so it will go on the ground. So put something to catch the water underneath. It won't be much. Should only be about a cup or two. So 8 ounces, 16 ounces. It's not going to be a lot. Loosen up this upper slip joint as well, and you should be able to pull the P-trap straight down, dump it out, and your jewelry or whatever falls in there should be in there. So it didn't go down completely down the sewer, didn't go everywhere. It should be sitting in there. If it's not, well, then it's gone. But the best thing you can do is take this off. It'll be in bathrooms, kitchens, everywhere that has a drain should have a P-trap on it. Floor drains. These will be found in your HVAC closets. Anywhere that you have air conditioning that runs in. It's a very big, common problem. I actually went out to a library. She had been smelling something, the director, in her HVAC closet. And she called and was like, I think I'm smelling gas. They came out, said you weren't smelling gas. She had been there for about a year. And I went out there to look at her building. I put my hand right on top of the floor drain, and you could actually feel some air coming out, which tells me that the water has dried up in the floor drain. in the concrete, under the concrete, will be one of those P-traps. What I was always told, and what I believe is probably the best practice, is to put 8 ounces of water per inch of diameter, so across your pipe about once every 2 to 3 months. So basically, if you have a floor drain, put 2 to 3 coffee cups of water down there. It'll sound hollow when it falls down into the drain. You aren't going to put too much water down there. It will go down and go into the sewer. So fill that P-trap up, and you should lose that smell of rotten eggs coming out of there. It is just sewer gas. Sewer gas isn't dangerous. It just stinks. So again, they put these in because in your furnaces where your condenser radiator style coil is in for your cold water for your AC unit will get condensed water on it. And then it comes out a tube and into a floor drain, most likely in your HVAC closet. Shutoffs. If there is water on the floor, check your trap. If it is not your P-trap that is leaking, turn off your water valves. Your water valves are everywhere that there's an arrow. There's one on toilets. There's one on sinks. These shutoffs should just turn, and it will turn the water off going to the sink or to the toilet. If you have a toilet that's leaking or plugged, let's say, and about to overflow, turn your toilet shutoff off, plunge, do what you have to do. It will not fill the tank up in the toilet anymore when that shutoff is off. If you feel comfortable and you're getting a leak on the opposite side of the shutoff, so from the shutoff to the sink or from the shutoff to the toilet, if you feel comfortable and it's leaking here and you want to tighten it, go ahead and give it a tighten. What I would suggest is that you hold the shutoff with a pliers so that you do not turn the shutoff on the pipe coming out of the wall. It could be soldered on, could be brazed on, it could be just compressioned on. If it's leaking from the shutoff into the wall, then you're going to have to shut your main off to your building. It should be outside. You should have an idea where you're by a water valve where your shutoff is, and call somebody. But if you need to get a plumber in and it's dripping water and you don't know where it's coming from, and you want to just shut the or your sink is leaking, it won't shut off, and you need to shut off water at any time, you can just turn this valve and it should shut the water off to toilets, sinks. You should have them on your dishwashers. If you have one in your building, your water in your fridge should have one. Anywhere that water is should have a shutoff somewhere. Outdoor water. Your outdoor water will have a shutoff as well. So if you go outside and you turn your outside hose on and it doesn't come on, there's most likely a shutoff like the two that I have on the right here in your building where that water supply is coming from. We do shut these off in Wisconsin. We do not want to have them leaking outside and have water in them when we get sub-zero temperatures. So inside the building, usually in a ceiling, or I think all mine are in the drop ceiling, there's a valve like this that I can turn. The top is open. So when the valve is, when the handle is facing the pipe, it's open. When the valve here is perpendicular to the pipe, it is closed. So you'll see this, you'll follow it where it comes up into the ceiling, where it comes into the building. It should not be very far. There might be a twist style valve. You can either twist those closed, twist those open. Most newer buildings or any pipes that have been replaced throughout time will have this style ball valve. This is what you'll see outside your building. Electrical. Now we're going to get to some electrical light bulbs and that type of thing. So LEDs versus fluorescents. I very highly suggest that you check into switching your fluorescent tubes. So these are your 8-foot light tubes in your ceilings. This is one of the biggest payoffs you can have in saving energy for your building. Roughly, this is a very rough estimate, that for every 24 hours, 24/7, if you left a light on and you had a 32-watt bulb, that's going to cost you roughly $32 a year to run that bulb. Most of our T8 or T10 or T12 light bulbs that are your 4-foot light bulbs, that most of them are in commercial buildings, have 2 to 4 light bulbs in each fixture. So that light, if it was running 24/7, would cost you $64 to $128 a year to run each one of those light bulbs. LED retrofits, so retrofit bulbs, you can order them by the case. You can get them at Ace Hardware, you can get them at any hardware store. Those usually cut that in half. So your $32 a year gets cut instantly in half. It is one of the fastest upgrades you can do to your building. And the LEDs last for like 10,000 hours. There is very easy ways to do this. It's something so easy that you should be able to do yourself. If you have Public Works that helps you, call them. They're more than happy probably to come over and do this. If you're doing it yourself, or even if they're doing it, I suggest buying the light bulbs that still have the ballast and are not hardwired in. Hardwiring takes a little bit more knowledge to do, as you got to take the fixture out and actually cut the ballast off and rewire the fixtures. Now, if you have somebody at Public Works that's fairly handy and able to do this, that actually will save you more money. Ballasts take a little bit. Their ballasts are basically in the light fixtures, and when you flip the light, it gives it the power to ignite the fluorescent gases inside a fluorescent bulb to get them to turn on. They have an electrical surge, but the LEDs that are ballast compliant will actually be able to handle that surge and not burn up, where the ones that are not ballast compliant will not be able to handle that surge of energy that turns them on. The ballast upcharge is a couple dollars a year, so it's not a huge deal. But if you have somebody doing it for you, that might be something you want to look into, is having them take the ballasts out. Light colors. So this gets interesting. It's one of my pet peeves in a building, is walking in and looking up at the lights and there being 3 to 4 different colored light bulbs. It's just me personally. Some people like daylight, which is a really white light. Some people like cool white, warm. My wife prefers warm white, which is like a yellower color. The easiest way to figure this out is to use this scale here and use the Kelvin number. So the whiter the light, the truer the color that they are. So if you ever go into a grocery store and you go up to the produce, they're going to have a very, very, very high Kelvin light, 7,000 to 10,000 or greater, to be able to bring the color of your apples, your greens out on there. If you ever go into like a parking lot or a parking garage and you walk into there and it's almost yellow, and it will actually change the color of your reds and your greens. That's the bottom of our thing here. Those are high pressure sodium lights, or like your parking lot lights. The yellower can be actually easier on your eyes for the day, as it's not so bright. But for a library setting with books and people reading and that type of thing, a higher daylight style, higher Kelvin might be better for your library settings. I think that we have 4,000 Kelvin in our building. The 3,500 to 5,000 is about what you want to do now. Like I said, a pet peeve of mine, walking in, you look up at a light bulb, you might have a yellow light and a blue light in there, 2 different colors. It works. It just doesn't look the best to me. So this is where we talked about replacing that grounded plug. It's fairly simple. It's not very expensive to do. You can get the plugs at Ace, at your hardware stores, your Menards, Lowe's, whatever you have. Come up, you get your wire, you cut the end off with a wire cutter. You then carefully take a knife or your wire cutter and cut back the insulation about 2 to 3 inches. You'll have 3 wires, a black wire, a white wire, and a green wire. You'll see that in the illustration on the right. You strip those wires back about 1 inch and connect them with a Phillips screw to the plug end. So there will be a silver screw on one. You put the white wire on there. There will be a bronze screw on one side. Put the black wire on there, and there will be a green screw. You'll put the green wire or bare wire. Sometimes there's a bare wire in there. That's the ground to the bottom one of the two. You then will slide, or you'll slide the end back on, tighten the clamp down on the wire, and tighten the end of the whole setup, and that will have a new grounded plug, safe grounded plug on the end of a wire. You'll have these on your coffee makers, your extension cords, your vacuum cleaners. That's a big one that I see missing a ground, is a vacuum cleaner. The ground is on there for a reason. If it were to come in contact with water, you're going to want to make, or you suck up some water, for safety, you're going to want to keep that grounded plug on there. GFI outlets. These you'll have in your bathrooms, your kitchens, anywhere that water could be present. Is basically a small circuit inside of the outlet that keeps you from getting electrocuted if there were to be water. If you plug something into the outlet and it doesn't turn on, and you see that it is a GFI outlet, which will have 2 buttons in the middle of it, we need to reset that. What you might have is you might have a kitchen where there is a bunch of outlets connected to one GFI. So if you go into a kitchen unit, like I know my home has this, there's one GFI outlet by the door, and every of the outlets in my kitchen run through that GFI. We have that in our caterer's kitchen at my building as well. There's one GFI, and I think there is 3 outlets per GFI connected to this one. So this is the first thing you want to check. If you're in a kitchen or in a wet space, bathrooms will have this. What you do is you will walk up to it, and there might be a little red light above the reset button. It's usually right about there, just below the upper outlet. If you see the red light, that means it's not on. So what you need to do is reset it, which is push the red or the top button. You will hear it click and it will reset. If you don't know if it's reset, you can always push the test button and it'll make a loud clicking sound, which is the GFI going off. Push the red button on the top and it will start working again. If that is not the case, then most likely you pop the breaker, and that's what we have next is breakers. So what you have to do is locate the breaker panels in your building. I think here I have 8 breaker panels. They can be all over the building. After you've located these, you can open the door and find the breaker that is in the off position. Off position is usually towards the outside of the panel. So if you look through and you see some on the outside, facing the outside, there's usually spares in each one of your panels. But if you have a very old building that has been converted over the years and outlets added and things added, lights, cameras, computers, these most likely won't have any spares in them. I know I have a building in our village hall that doesn't have any spares in any of them. There might be another panel off to the side of the breaker, which could be a additional panel that's added for like AC units. Furnaces might all be in a second panel added to it. So what you'll want to do is find the labeling, which if you look, this panel is very well labeled right here above his arm, which says where everything is. Yours might not be as well labeled as this. There might not be any labels in it. So that gets a little bit more tricky. So if you look in there and you say none of them are off, take and push towards the center. Take your hand. There's no electrical current that's going to come through here. They're safe. Take your hand and push towards the center. If any of the breakers have any movement whatsoever, that means that they're popped. That means that they have gone off for whatever reason. Again, like our safety, we want to go back, check the area, see why it went off. If you put too many crock pots in your kitchen or in a space, we had this in our community hall that is a rental space. They put 11 crock pots and plugged them all into one outlet and one circuit. That did not work. It instantly popped the breakers. I could tell which one it was. It was well labeled, but if I couldn't, I would push on the breakers. I would look to see if it was moved to the outer edge. If it wasn't, I'd push on the breakers. If there's movement in the breaker, it means it's popped. I flip it to the off side and then I turn it back on and it should make a click, a loud click. And if it makes that loud click, it means it's re-energized. If it doesn't, flip it back to the off side and try it again. If it doesn't, then you might have a bad breaker and you're going to have to call an electrician. But most likely flipping it to the off side to back on, it will turn on. Some breaker panels have a red indicator. I know at my home, there's a red indicator underneath the breaker, right where you see my cursor. And that lets you know that the breaker has popped. Again, sometimes that's only half showing. I like to take the breaker I think is popped, turn it outside, push it towards the outside off, then turn it all the way back on. That should reset your power. This is my building from the outside. Again, it's 2019, so it's fairly new. It's a beautiful 40,000 square foot building. We want to do some outside checks on our building. So when we walk around, we want to visually check the outside. I want to look for things on the roof. I want to look for cracks in the sidewalk that somebody could trip if I need to. If I have a raised sidewalk as I walk in, maybe I want to paint that. Maybe I want to change, call somebody, see if it can be ground off from the village or the municipality. Broken windows. Our old building right now, kids were throwing rocks at and broke 2 windows. I have a company coming out to change the windows. Now, we had to build a usually we have 2 panes in Wisconsin. So a broken window on the outer pane does not mean somebody can get in the building. It'll just shatter and there'll be 2 sets of windows. Call a glass company. You usually do not need to change the entire window. A glass company will come in and they can change the sash of the window, which is just the insulated glass part of the window. They come, they take the window apart, put a new piece in. Same with your glass doors. This will save you a lot of money in the long run. It's the same glass, it's the same insulation that you have now, but you don't have to change the frame. A lot of people will think you have to change the frame. You actually, window glass companies, look them up in your area. They can just change the actual sash itself. Every night before we lock up, I like to do a walk around the outside of the building. I suggest that I have my building supervisors or managers that are locking up the building walk around the outside of the building. It only takes a few minutes. Take a flashlight, walk around the outside of the building, pull on the doors, make sure they're locked. We want to look when we're outside at our AC units, make sure there isn't leaves, make sure that our cottonwood hasn't filled up our AC unit, and trash. We just don't want a dirty building. So if you need to get something fixed, call somebody if you are not able to take care of it, and they'll come take a look. Rainwater. Rainwater can be another big issue on the outside of our building. One of the biggest things you're going to see is clogged gutters. If water backs up and runs over the gutter, this one in this photo here is actually cracked, but it will look something like that, where it's coming out where it's not supposed to be. It could flood areas of your entryway, your basement. We get a big, long, hard rain, or if we get one of our winter rains and late fall and it clogs up with ice, we want to make sure that we get that off. The best thing you can do, set up a ladder if you feel comfortable, get up there, take the clog out. Most likely it's leaves, pine needles, sticks that have fallen on our roofs, ice. I've seen squirrels make nests in there. Sometimes I've seen where they haven't been cleaned out in a really long time and trees are starting to grow out of there with roots. So you want to get up there, use our ladder safety, make sure your ladder's secure. If you need to and it's uneven or outside or wet, you need to have somebody come help you, hold the ladder, crawl up there, grab the stuff out of there and just throw it. Most of the time you're going to find this in your downspouts. So what will happen, or where the downspout, the gutter enters the downspout. So what will happen is our leaves will fall on our roof, our pine needles will fall on the roof, rain will come, wash them down in the gutters will fill up with water, they'll wash them to the downspout, which then at this building here, the downspout goes down into the sewer or into the storm water retention ponds that I have out back before going into the creek. Or sometimes it just runs out onto the ground, that's okay too. But what you want to do is make sure that those are open. If you don't feel comfortable getting up there, call somebody at Public Works, call somebody in the village that can come clean that up, or in the city. If you do not clean this out, what can happen is your roof underlayment can start to rot, or it can cause rotting of the gutter itself. And with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming to our webinar here, and have a great rest of your day.